TD Jakes, Bishop TD Jakes on Renewing Your Mind.
There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind. You can change your hair, your clothing, your address, your spouse, your church, your residence. But if you don't change your mind, the same experience will perpetuate itself over and over again because everything outwardly changed, but nothing inwardly changed. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind. You see, if you go on a computer, they have on a computer what they call default settings. So whether you're in Microsoft or whatever it is, whatever program it is, or any kind of program, it has a default. The default sets in the computer some principles and ideas to which the computer is committed. It does not mean that you can't function outside of the default. It just means that even if you deviate from the default, the computer will automatically take you back to default settings. And if you don't want it to do that, it's more than changing the font. You have to change the default. We change the font. And while we're typing, whatever we type in, this font will appear in this font. And it will appear that it has changed. But it really has not changed, because the moment you go out and come back in again, it will come back up, back to default. This is how most people live their lives, because their default hadn't changed. Their situation hasn't changed. When they're in church, they can get this going. When they're around certain people, they can get this going. When you sing certain songs, they can get that going. When you shout and leap, you can get that going. But when you go back home, you go back to default. So you're going back to default over and over again. And when you get around certain people, you change. And you want to hang around them, because as long as you're around them, you feel peace, or you feel nice, or you feel kind, or you feel spiritual, or you feel holy. That's not the problem. The problem is when you go back to yourself, you're stuck in the same pattern that you were before, and you can't figure out how to break it. You've cried about it, but you keep going back. You've shouted about it, but you keep going back. You've even prayed about it, but you keep going back. And you can't figure out how somebody who cried for it and shouted for it and sang about it and started going to church on Sunday, and why does this still keep happening to me? I don't know whose prayer I'm breaking into, but I'm breaking into somebody's prayer saying, Lord, why do I keep going through the same things over and over again? I go to church now, I tithe now, I shout now, I leap now, and the Lord sent me here to tell you it's no problem with your sentence. The problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before, because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you changed everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind.
Wow. Wasn't that amazing just to hear, especially from someone like Bishop T. Jakes? There's nothing as powerful as a changed mind. So we're going to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Words of Wisdom Empowerment Hour. My name is Donna Morton, and I'm not only your host tonight, but I'm actually one of your speaker. Let me just quickly introduce myself and jump right in. I am a spiritual self-development coach, CEO and president of Women of Culture Incorporated, Caribbean American Diaspora Alliance, and real estate broker of Florida Summer Homes Realty. Also, life coach at Inner Vibes Consultant. So, this evening, we're going to be talking about how to reap, how to renew the mind, elevate our beliefs, align our faith so that we can prosper abundantly. And I know everybody wants to prosper, and we need to understand that prospering is not only financially, but it's emotionally, it's physically, it's relationally, it's so many different levels. So we're gonna just go forward. Before we get started, actually, what I like to do in the mornings, and actually I like to do it throughout the day, is declarations. I call it my spiritual declaration. And I'm going to ask Miss Jerome King, my awesome special friend and outreach partner, to do it with me. And I'm not sure if anybody wants to join in, but it's probably easier and simpler for both of us to do it. And this is something that I encourage you to do daily throughout your day. It takes like 30 seconds in the shower. So I'm going to begin. And this is part of the practice that I will be speaking about of getting aligned with the Spirit of God. So I will begin by saying, I'm aligned with God's divine abundance.
I'm going to say, hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm Jerome King. And I'm going to say, I'm aligned with God's way of making me believe.
Awesome. So I'm aligned with God's confidence, courage, cash flow, creativity, customers, clients, because I'm a businesswoman. So I have all these extra. And so this is just an example of what we can do each day, starting going through the alphabet with A, B, C, and just tell yourself what you are aligned with. And so we'll continue. Jerome?
I'm aligned with God's way of making me deliberate in what I do, and also to define me.
Wonderful. I'm aligned with God's divine energy.
I am aligned with God's focus and how God folds me into his divine design.
Love it. I'm aligned with God's divine goodness, greatness, gifts.
I'm aligned with God's hope that he gives me. And also, don't let us leave out God's hug that he gives us every day.
Yes. I'm aligned with God's intelligence and ideas.
I'm aligned with God's joy that he gives.
Yes. I'm aligned with God's knowledge and kindness.
I am aligned with God's liberty that he gives us through his love.
Wonderful. I'm aligned with God's might, his mercy, and his money.
I'm aligned with how God helps us to negotiate our lives.
I'm aligned with God's opulence and opportunities.
I'm aligned with God's protection and purpose.
I am aligned with God's queendom.
I like that. I am aligned with God's, what T.D. Jakes just said, his release and his renewal.
I'm aligned with God's success and strength.
I'm aligned with God's touch. Whenever God touches us, I'm aligned with God's touch.
I'm aligned with God's unity and understanding.
I'm aligned with God's voice. That
I'm
voice.
I'm aligned with God's wealth and wisdom and wellness.
Yes. And the next one, I was hoping Donna would get it, but
I skipped.
But I am aligned with, it's not quite the word, but the way God makes us exhale.
Yes. I'm aligned with God's youth.
And I'm aligned with God's Zen.
Amen. So that was an example of how you as an individual can just go through the alphabet and declare how you are aligned with God's goodness and greatness. Okay, so that was just an example. And I do that throughout the day. So now it can just roll off my tongue because I practice and I have certain, ones that I just say over and over. So we're going to move on. Jerome, if you can check the chat for me.
Sure.
So again, we want to say welcome to the spiritual self-development strategies to align the mind, the heart, and the spirit with your spiritual partner, God. And we like to stress at Vibez Consulting that God is your partner. God is your spiritual partner. So that just makes you so much stronger knowing that, right? So again, REAP was renew the mindset, elevate the beliefs, and align with God to prosper in your life.
Yes.
So today's verse that we're going to focus on is Ephesians 4:22-24. Put off the old character, renew the corrupt mind, and put on the new character.
Donna, that's quite powerful.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm saying that's quite powerful.
Yes.
Because you really have to put on this new character when you get to what we are doing.
Yes. So we're going to start out. I like to do pictures, right? Because with pictures we kind of get to see like, oh, so this is it. So this is an example to kind of show us how we start out in life with pure thoughts and hearts. Just loving children. There's no fear, there's no hate, there's no jealousy. There's just love. And this verse that says that I like to say with this is, truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Right? So just take a look at this picture, the calmness, the serene of these children. So we're going to go to the next slide. So then we go on and a couple years passes by, the whole teenage thing. So depending on our childhood experiences, trauma, the environment we live in, the dysfunctional family we may have, friends, life, etc., we slowly move from those pure and innocent mindset and heart, and we start to develop a language, or also a program, or a subconscious mind, or the default, like we heard Bishop Jake said, the default, right, about life. The subconscious mind and heart slowly becomes corrupted, and the character is being developed accordingly. So I also did this slide because I want people to see that the mind has like two levels. 10% of our what you see on top is called the conscious mind, and that is where we think from. That's the critical thinking, the logical thinking, the willpower to say, I'm going to do this diet, or I'm going to do this goal, and all of that, right? So, but down below, deep, that iceberg that you see down below, that's your subconscious mind. That's the program. That's the default. And that is where the memories are stored, the experiences, the beliefs, the habits. Especially for the first 7 years of our life, they say our mind is like a sponge, and we're just soaking. So whatever we're hearing from our family, if we're hearing lack, scarcity, fear, worry, guess what? Those little mind, they're just absorbing that. So, and we don't understand it, but it's going on. So this is where 90% is what the 90% is what controls us. The 90%. So think about if you spoke a language at home and the language was English, and you get to be an adult and you say, well, I want to speak Spanish now. You are not just going to be able to just switch that program. You're going to have to do some work, which is what we don't really like to do as adults, because we don't understand and we like quick results, right? So here we are now as an adult. You saw how we slowly kind of corrupted, not by our fault. So we need to understand that it's just our surrounding, the language that was spoken in the household. Language was love and support, and you're awesome, and we don't need anything, and God is here for us, and that child, you as a child, will grow up with that default. If the language at home was primarily always worrying about the next meal, worrying about the money, worrying about food, shelter. If there was trauma, your friends, the people around, your environment, what you're seeing every day, the condition of your environment, all those things are just attaching themselves to you, and it's your default. But you don't know it, but it's there, just like you learned the language. If the family spoke 2 languages at home, the children will also speak 2 languages. If English and Spanish or Creole or whatever it is spoken, those children will speak both. If there's only one, that child will always speak the one default language. So we need to understand that our children are listening and learning, and they're absorbing, and their default programming is being corrupted by our negativity, by our yelling and screaming, by our worrying, all those things. They're picking it up. That's why they say we become our mothers or fathers. We learn their behaviors, right? So Now, as an adult, the corrupt subconscious mind is blocking our blessings and sabotaging our success. And we don't understand what's going on. We're good people, like the video said. We pray, we sing, we tithe, we do all these things. We go to church regularly, morning service, night service. We do all these things. And we still seem to be in this situation of lack and limitation, but we don't want it, right? The conscious mind wants success, wants help, wants this really good relationship or marriage, healthy relationships. But the subconscious programming that we learned is saying, no, 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 that's not who we are. So then what can you do? Because after a while, the frustration comes in, and that's when people give up. You move for one state, you move out of country, you change your hair color, you lose weight, you do all these different things. You change relationships, you keep finding the same kind of man or woman too. The same kind of a person you keep coming across. What can you do? You have to put off the old character, renew the corrupt mind, and put on the new character. You cannot just think you're going to just pray it off. It's some work. You pray, obviously, but you pray for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of how to do it. And we always want to make sure that these classes are just support. We want you to be able to go back and go into your Bible or go to your support, your church, but more, we want you to build that personal relationship. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats that personal relationship with God. And I know for me, I didn't know there was such a thing many years ago because I learned, I would say, the wrong way or false. I would say I learned that God was far away, out of reach. I learned about a God that was just about wrath and not necessarily love. It may have been just me, but I learned, I thought that basically when you get 70, that's when you really even start thinking about Jesus and God and all those things, before, because everybody pushes, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of the times religion is pushed as before you die you need to get saved so you don't go to hell, right? And it could have been because I am 54 now, so it could have been an old way of teaching, but I learned that. So, and I saw many people that adopted that, like, all right, you see the man them really would like around 60 when the blood pressure kick in and they couldn't really go places. That's when they started coming into the church. So it was really kind of like this way you just do it before you're dead, right? And there was something bothering me about that whole thing. I would then go to, because we grew up in the church, I would go to one church and one church would say, you can't wear earrings. Then we go to another one, they say, you can wear earrings, but you can't wear pants. And for me, I just saw a lot of rules and not necessarily relationship. And so none of that was really gelling with me. So from my personal story, I ran away from religion and ran into God. And it's the most amazing thing to even see me researching scriptures to support personal development. Sometimes I don't know what's going on with me. Right, Jerome? It's the most amazing thing.
I know, I know. And you and I can chat for hours.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I understand we let me check the comment because if I don't check it, it's not gonna come off. Yes, thank God for deliverance from the spirit of religion.
Yeah. I was just gonna tell you that that's what she said.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. So I always knew that I always knew God. I always knew I had some powers. I don't know where that really came from, but I always knew it. When I was 25, I made a pact with God. I was going through, about to be divorced, already have 2 children, and I got pregnant with, again, and I made a pact with God, like, God, if I have this child, there's no way I can't do this on my own. And it's probably what I needed because I was thinking that I was supposed to do it on my own. And so the third child was that, when sometimes you get that extraness, so you can realize that you're not supposed to do it on your own. So I made a pact with God at 25, and it was like angels started appearing at different, paths in my life. But I still wasn't really connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm.
It really was like 2015. I really started really searching, really yeah, you ask, you knock, and you seek, and then it comes, it's open, right? And then I also went natural. I cut off my hair, and then something like the floodgates just opened, and I realized that we are supposed to have a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
personal relationship with God. I realize, because I know different people have different views, that God is not far yonder. God is right here within me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learn these things, I get so excited because, and so what that does is it takes off that stress now, because you're like, what? That powerful being I have, I have connection, I have personal connection with him. Um, you know, it's the most amazing transformation to understand that. So
Yeah.
we're gonna move forward. So we know, okay, what happened with we started out young, nice, happy, and then traumas played a part, environment, family dysfunction, family, friends, influence. So then we have the corrupt mind here, right?
Donna, I wanted to just share something with you.
Yes.
Um, and it's going back to slide 1 and coming right up. I went to the beach and
Mm-hmm.
I saw a beautiful black little boy. He was so fabulous. And I said it to his mother, and his mother said, she thanked me, and then she said, they're from Chicago. He goes to a school, and he and a white little boy are very close, very, very close. And one day, her son, at the age of 4, came home and said, something like, I don't know what this means, but it did not make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, what was it? And she said, my friend told me that his father said, you can have the greatest friendship with this beautiful name. His name is Legend. You can have the greatest friendship with Legend at school, but know that we will never have sleepovers. So from the age of 4, coming back to what you're saying about the environment, how it corrupts you.
Mm-hmm.
If his parents were not proactive at this age,
Right.
he could go in a different direction. So you're right about that.
Yes.
It starts from way back there, age 4.
Very early.
Mm-hmm.
We want to just take a few seconds to just to talk about God, Mother Nature, the laws and principles of earth. It must be respected, right? This is a part where a lot of people don't know about, or they don't like to talk about, or but I always say we have no clue how electricity works. No clue. Electricity has been around for so long, and then people came along and they figured out how to harness it, and now we have to pay for electricity, every month. So, and if we don't respect electricity, you know what happens? We get it can bless us or it can kill us. So this is a part now where we try to tell you the Bible tells us to guard our thoughts and heart numerous times, over and over. Guard your thoughts. As you think on good things. Why? We are spiritual beings. We live on an earth with creative and destructive energy. Everything in life has a positive and a negative. It must for balance. It's what you do with it. Just like I said, electricity. It can light up our houses and so much. And if that child, or if you put your hand in the socket, it can kill you. Same power. So on the left, you see what we call a map of consciousness levels. And at the very bottom, you see shame. So these are our low, what we call the low destructive energy. So when we say that, it's that feeling that you have now, it's habitual. You're waking up with it over and over. It's consistent. We're not just talking about, wow, you just feel something and, that pass. This is that every day now. It's part of your default. Shame, guilt, helplessness, hopelessness, grief, sadness, regret, depression, fear, worry, anxiety. These are the lowest forms of energy. They're destructive. And so many of us live in this state right here. Worrying about bills, worrying about help, worrying about children, careers, housing, all these things. We don't know that we're causing any harm, but it's being done. So on a physical side now, if we look over onto the right, we'll see, and I'm going to reduce the screen so we'll see that these are arteries. Just like a child, we start out with this healthy artery, right? And then we get the corrupt thinking from our environment, family trauma, and then it starts to get blocked. And to the far right, the artery is really blocked. And when it gets like that, that's when people start to have, heart attacks and so forth, because the blood's not able to flow. Now, when you go to the doctor is saying, oh, you're stressed, and this is what's causing the disease. You need to reduce your stress. And we just hear the word stress. So this is how we, as an individual, we are playing a part in our demise. It is not the easiest thing to hear, but when you look at it here, worry, anxiety, sadness, regret, depression, hopelessness, guilt, blame, victim, miserable, humiliation, all these things are which a lot of people live from this level on a norm. And then we're just getting sick, and there's more diseases, and the disease rates are higher and higher and higher. But it's not just the physical that it's damaging. Just think about now God's blessing.
Yeah.
We go back to the healthy artery, the flow. We see how it just flows. then the corrupt thinking starts in the middle. So we get a little here and there, but but over here now to the right, this is when people say you're salt. Nothing is going good for you.
Nothing is salt.
You're salt. So
Mhm.
we are contributing, we are blocking the flow of God's blessings to our lives by our corrupt thinking and emotions. Just like we block the flow to our heart via the artery by poor diet, we block the blessings of God by our poor thinking. And poor is sitting in the destructive energy. It's God's energy. God set us up here on earth. And he put his laws and his principles and Mother Nature. And he also then sent messengers to say, okay, I love them, I really, really love them. And I want them to have a good, an abundant and fulfilling life. So I'm still going to give them these tips if they will only listen, if they will only heed. But we don't. So, but look at what the creative energies are. So you'd go into courage, and then neutral, and then you go into willingness, and you go into acceptance and reason, love, joy, peace. Even if you get to love. And that's why it's important to do, because you say, well, how can I feel love if everything is falling apart? You have to do it, because that's the only way to get you out of the lower vibration of destructive energy. It's Mother Nature. You have to do the work. And that's why the daily affirmations, the daily self-love is important, because you can't change, like we said, you'll change everything around you, change cities, states, countries, and you are following you always.
Mhm.
So know that we have a spiritual warfare, that the battle is in the mind. The weapons we fight are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds, and we can take captive every thought. Take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. If you start just reading about, researching, what does God say? What does Jesus say about thoughts and mind and heart? You would be just blown away, like I was, as to how important. So what we want to share with everyone is, I think right now the majority of people focus on only renewing or the spirit side, like, which is the going to church and the religious side and all of that. And they ignore the mind side, and they ignore the heart side. So we have a lot of religious people on different religions, thinking poorly, thinking negatively, thinking lack and scarcity and fear, and also feeling it in their hearts.
Mhm.
The churches have one of the biggest divorce rates, sickness. How are we aligned with God? Hi, Reverend Stacy.
Hi, Reverend Stacy. I was just going to type. Welcome.
Oh, I always have to click on the chat, or so it won't leave the screen. So we have to know that we need the three things. We need the mind, the heart, and the spirit. So to be in balance, we cannot, and we should not, we need to stop it. We cannot go to church 5 times a week, and minute you leave church, You're talking bad about sister this and sister that, and brother this, and the first lady. So we're having these thoughts, corrupt thoughts. We're having the gossip. We're having the complaining. And then those feelings, but then we're also having those feelings of fear and worry and doubt, right? And remember that those feelings also bring sickness. So we must understand that blessings and curses are in the life and death are in the tongue. But so we always hear the tongue, but before we speak it, it was developing in the heart. Before it was in the heart, it was being developed in the mind. So before we got it right here to speak, it was for a while now, months or years. You're thinking about it, you're worrying. That worry now seeps down into the heart, and now you're stressed, and the sicknesses are coming now because it's into your cells. It's corrupting your cells. It's blocking the cells. It's blocking you on your blessings, receiving your blessings from God, and it's blocking your health. So it is it's destructive on so many levels. Let me check the chat really quick.
No, I got it. I got you.
Oh, well, no, it won't, for me, it won't move until I personally check it. So,
oh, I see. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so what we want you to know is get to know God, but not just the religious way. Like, talk to Him, like, spend time. Understand that God is here, right here in your heart, in your soul, and have conversations with Him. Right? Understand that God is your spiritual partner. You see, like how we have a life, we have a husband, wife, or we have a mate. God is your spiritual partner. He's not far somewhere. Develop a personal relationship with God. Ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Before we start asking for money and all these different things, ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Because if we don't have the wisdom to deal with the money and we get the money, we see sometimes we see people get quick money and by next year, or they did something, or so we need to ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But understand that the warfare is in the mind. Because let me tell you, like the video said, when we are in fellowship, we are in church, and everybody's singing and it sounds good, and by the time you leave the parking lot, that default kicks in.
Absolutely.
The complaining person kicks in, they get a call, cussing kicks in, the worrying kicks in about your worrying, even if the check is going to bounce that you just wrote. All these things, the default kicks in. So do we want to keep living like that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we want to keep living like that. So, so let's go to the next slide. So what do we have to do now? So we have to put on the new character. So that means that we have to plant new thoughts daily. So here comes the work that people say, oh no, because people like to do quick things. Even when if we're trying to lose weight, we go exercise for 1 week, and then if we don't see any signs, we stop.
Yeah.
For many of us, we stop. Whatever it is that we're trying to do, we stop because we just think that we're supposed to get this instant thing in a couple days. We have to understand that if we've had 20 years of corrupt thinking, 30, 40, 50 years of corrupt thinking, do we think that this is something we can just change
overnight? No.
So, but we do have to understand that we have a role to play. We are the farmers of our thoughts. If you want the fruit orange, you cannot plant apple seeds and then get mad at God that, God, why didn't you give me apple? I wanted apple, or I wanted something else. Because you didn't plant that. You planted, you got what you planted. So you said, now he that plant and he that water are one, and every man shall receive his own reward according to
Yeah.
his own labor. But we don't understand the whole mother nature piece and the spiritual and energetic piece of this, so we ignore it. But you, and then because we have the corrupt programming too, right? We're just operating from that level. So at some point though, you have to, or not, but at some point we'd hope that you wake up and say, oh man, yeah, I can't change. So you can't change the past. We can't go back and yell mom and dad or uncle and auntie and say, well, this, and you raised me up in this household with lack and poverty. They were doing what they knew. So but now, what are you going to do about it? Because you are now doing the same thing to your children. You're speaking lack and limitation. You're speaking doubt and worry and fear to your children. So you're just passing on. And that's where we have generational curses just going, repeating itself because nobody knows what to do. Because this type of message is not taught, right?
Yeah.
If you just do ritual things, yes, it is important. And if you want to get baptized and all those things, that is completely fine. But just know that that act alone will not, you have to do by Mother Nature. You have to go back and plant. If you plant the orange seeds and you went to the seeds and you speak in tongue over the seeds, it's not going to do anything. You have to bury it. You have to water it. You have to fertilize it. You have to weed it. You have to take care of your farm. But we want to just do whatever, think whatever we want, feel however we want, say whatever we want, and then just go to church on Sunday and say, God, fix it. And then get frustrated and wonder if there is a God. And God is saying, you need to do these things. And we're like, but no, we don't have time for all those things. You just do the magic. We're going to continue to think false. We're going to continue to think and feel and speak, death over our lives, but you fix it because that's what we were told. So understand that you have to put in some work and you have to plant new seeds, right? And part of what I do on a daily basis is, and what you could do for the water and in fertilizing the mind, the heart, and the spirit, and increasing your faith in God and faith in you aligned with God, right? Because it's now you and God are partners. And so what I do, and it doesn't take long, you could do something like 10 minutes, 3 times a day, or so you can start out with gratitude journal. You can start out with reading. I do a daily Bible scripture, just a verse, and then I do my journal, and then I write. But I have more time than probably a lot of people. You can be still. You could start if you wake up 15 minutes early, start in the bed. Start being still and giving thanks there, so that you have to monitor your time. Then I do my spiritual I am declarations. I do that while I'm out walking. I have a vision board on my phone through my notes. You can kind of just go through, and it's good to look at that before going to bed and in the morning, just to kind of, okay, this is where I want to be. I call it my me time with God and daily infusion of vitamin G, God and goodness. And I monitor my mental chatter throughout the day. And because you'd be surprised when you're washing dishes, and all of a sudden you hear yourself thinking negative about your life, and you can't do this, you're not good enough for this. But we weren't paying attention before. But now when you hear that, you just know we don't think like that anymore. You have to now speak to that default. We used to think like that, but we don't think like that anymore. Now, I think and it's hard. It's hard when you're sick and you don't see the help and you still have to be strong. It's hard. It's hard when you don't see the money in the bank or these things in the clients. It's hard, but you have to just build that faith, build that trust, and understand that it's all about faith. And you still have to keep that love and happiness up, right? So these are just some things, and everybody can do different things, but it's important. We spend so much time on social media, but then we say, oh, we don't have time for this. But then if you spend time on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, all these different things, but you don't have 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunch. Sometimes you get to an appointment and you're early. If you're in line, you know what I mean? Sometimes I look around, people are in line waiting for food for 10 minutes. Everybody's on their phone. Nobody's just closing their eyes and just, giving thanks, gratitude. Everybody's just going through social media. So then we say, we don't have time. So if we don't have time for God, why would God have time for us? We have to make the time for that relationship. Who knows a child that don't have a relationship with you, and then they want to just come and keep asking for stuff,
Yeah.
But first of all, God operates by laws and principles. You plant, and then you water, and you fertilize. So next slide, we're gonna see that these are some of the Bible verses that I love to read. Matthew 22:37. So God's first and greatest commandment told by Jesus was love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and mind. John 10:10. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Not as mother as you think. It is done. Matthew 8:13. It is done unto you as you believe. So meaning, if you believe that you're limited and you're not worthy, God has given us. He gave us dominion and authority to rule the earth. He gave us mind, speech, and free will, and instructions repeatedly over and over. He sent Jesus to give us instructions. What happened? Jesus was crucified because his own people didn't even believe what he was saying. Too easy. Philippians 4:8. Think on what is true, what is noble, what is right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. These are the high creative energy. He didn't say think, Job said what I feared the most came to me because he feared, so he was in that destructive energy. We are to be in the creative energy, which is love. And if you are in that energy all day long, so we have to understand that just like we cause sickness with our thoughts and feelings, we can heal. We can reverse. It's just that we don't believe it. We don't have that belief. And that's why there's some people that are healers, because they believed it. Like Jesus believed it. Jesus had to also work on his faith to increase his faith. So he had to do work, but we don't want to do work. So putting on the new character, change comes when the corrupt subconscious thoughts and beliefs are changed. It takes time, so be kind and patient to yourself. Talk good stuff to yourself. Talk lovingly to yourself. You encourage yourself. Say, wow, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for getting up and doing the work. I'm so proud of you for being committed to learning about yourself, learning about God, about building a relationship. You got to encourage yourself. We don't always have that privilege to have other people, especially if we're in dysfunctional families. We don't always have time for other people to bless us. So we have to learn to build ourselves up and bless us and encourage us so then we can pass it on. One thing we need to understand too is what we receive is not just to hoard. That channel is a channel for us, the blessings to come to us and through us. Not to just say, oh, I'm getting all this money. The money is to not just bless our families, our lives, but communities. We're here on assignment. We're here to do God's work. So we need to understand that we should have the resources. We should have the support financially, personally, friends, everything to support us. But know that it's not for us to hoard and just live a life. It's for us to give back and pour into the communities. So remember, it is done unto you as you.
As you do.
So work on increasing your faith. So when we see others living a certain life, say, man, her belief game is on point. Because when you understand that it's there for you too. The blessings are there for you, but it's our corrupt thinking and emotions now kind of clogging up our channels from God. So once you kind of understand how to unclog the drain so it can flow to you and through you, so your level of belief equals your blessings. If you don't believe that you are to have much, that's where it's gonna meet you. So you have to work on the consciousness. You have to work on the subconscious, on the faith, on the love. It's a process. So I would say when your character is new, you will walk in abundance, you'll walk in boldness, confidence, courage, faith, harmony, joy, love, and light. It's like it's just this peace because you know and you've remembered who and whose you are.
As you are. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Donna, I just want to let people know also, you have been talking and I didn't even want to interrupt because I just wanted people to understand where you're coming from. When you get this different character on, sometimes it's not even popular with people who are around you.
Right.
Because they are not there yet at different levels. It takes a different level. But as you said, you have to build from the negativity that's around you. And can you imagine if you put good thoughts to your everyday life, as you have said? And I can remember being in church. I go to church, and I heard that people would be doing testimonies of how God did stuff for them. And me, Jerome, would say, boy, I mean, I think that is true, How could they come to church and not tell the truth? But me, Jerome, here to tell you the amount of testimonies that I have.
Right.
It is truly a relationship with God, as you said. And thanks for these words of wisdom, because first of all, we have to believe.
Right.
And we have to, one of the takeaways from this is that it's a journey. We are at all different levels of that journey, and we have to remain open. When you get to a stage where you just say, God, take this, it is a beautiful thing, as you said. And as I said in the alignment, when God hugs you, it is amazing. And I can tell you, I see my sister on, and you know, the community that you talk about is so important, because when you said that, you know, you had a different experience with religion than I did, because my mom and dad, they were very much into their God. And it is through them that I got my spirituality.
Right.
And if you don't have good mentors around you, you're not going to know what to do. If you don't have a good mother and father, or a good mother alone, or a good father alone, or a good grandma, you know, who really have a relationship with God. You know, sometimes I'm in Jamaica, and sometimes you have these older women who they have this relationship with God. And you would say, boy, something wrong with Miss T. Miss T is at a different level.
Right.
So thank you, Donna, for those wise words.
Thank you. Well, I don't think we have, we had questions earlier. I don't think, Atia or Dr. Any
Earlier.
questions?
Yeah.
No questions, Donna.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, again, for joining us at Words of Wisdom Empowerment Hour. I just want to tell you this is brought to you by Women of Culture Incorporated. We're global outreach ambassadors serving all around the world. I see we have a comment, and so let me take up. Thank you.
Andrew.
And this is definitely going to be recorded, so that people can go back and share. And I want to end with
Another thank you.
Another thank you. Thank you. We're gonna go back, and I love this picture of the little children. I always say, what happened? What happened to our youth? Look at the difference. Trauma.
Yeah.
Some way, something happened in the families. So, you know, and when we look at our partners and our friends and understand that something could have happened to them, and that's why they're like this now. So, you know, we learn to be kinder people.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll finish up with TD Jakes again. I just really love what he said, and then we're going to end for the night.
Oh, we're on the same vibe. I was going to ask you to play it again.
Yes, yes.
There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind. You can change your hair, your clothing, your address, your spouse, your church, your residence. But if you don't change your mind, the same experience will perpetuate itself over and over again, because everything outwardly changed, but nothing inwardly changed. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind. You see, if you go on a computer, they have on a computer what they call default settings. So whether you're in Microsoft or whatever it is, whatever program it is, or any kind of program, it has a default. The default sets in the computer some principles and ideas to which the computer is committed. It does not mean that you can't function outside of the default. It just means that even if you deviate from the default, the computer will automatically take you back to default settings. And if you don't want it to do that, it's more than changing the font. You have to change the default. We change the font. And while we're typing, whatever we type in, this font will appear in this font. And it will appear that it has changed. But it really has not changed, because the moment you go out and come back in again, it will come back up, back to default. This is how most people live their lives, because their default hadn't changed. Their situation hasn't changed. When they're in church, they can get this going. When they're around certain people, they can get this going. When you sing certain songs, they can get that going. When you shout and leap, you can get that going. But when you go back home, you go back to default. So you're going back to default over and over again. And when you get around certain people, you change. And you want to hang around them, because as long as you're around them, you feel peace, or you feel nice, or you feel kind, or you feel spiritual, or you feel holy. That's not the problem. The problem is when you go back to yourself, you're stuck in the same pattern that you were before, and you can't figure out how to break it. You've cried about it, but you keep going back. You've shouted about it, but you keep going back. You've even prayed about it, but you keep going back. And you can't figure out how somebody who cried for it and shouted for it and sang about it and started going to church on Sunday, and why does this still keep happening to me? I don't know whose prayer I'm breaking into, but I'm breaking into somebody's prayer saying, Lord, why do I keep going through the same things over and over again? I go to church now, I tithe now, I shout now, I leap now, and the Lord sent me here to tell you it's no problem with your sentence. The problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before, because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you change everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind.